I'm Riley Matthews, 32 years old, and I thought birthdays were supposed to be special. Mine started with hope, but quickly spiraled when my mom texted that everyone was too busy to celebrate. Hours later, I froze, seeing her Instagram post a family dinner I wasn't invited to with the caption, "Nothing matters more than being together." The ultimate betrayal came next morning, a Venmo request for $1,300 for my share of a celebration I never attended. What happened next changed everything. Before I dive into this story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength when family lets you down. Now let me take you back to where it all began. Growing up in Portland, I always felt like I was looking through a window at my own family. There was my mom, Diane, my dad, Robert, my older sister Veronica, and my younger brother Tom. From the outside, we looked picture perfect, but inside our home, I existed in a different orbit than everyone else. My earliest memory of feeling this way was my 7th birthday. Mom had planned an elaborate party for all my classmates with a magician bouncy castle and custom cake. I was thrilled until I overheard her on the phone with her friend Susan. "Of course I'm doing all this. I have to compensate somehow. Riley's just not as easy to love as the other two." Those words embedded themselves into my heart, creating a wound that would reopen on countless birthdays to come. Veronica was the golden child from day one. 3 years older than me, she excelled at everything straight. A student cheerleader prom queen. Mom attended every single one of her events, beaming with pride, her camera perpetually ready. Tom came 4 years after me, the baby of the family who could do no wrong. His artwork covered our refrigerator. His baseball trophies dominated our mantle, and his needs always came first. Then there was me in the middle. I wasn't failing at life by any standard. I graduated high school with honors, earned a computer science degree from University of Washington, and landed a solid job at a Seattle tech startup. But somehow my achievements always came with qualifiers from my mother. Riley got into UW. Not Ivy League like we hoped, but still decent. Riley's working at some tech company. Not Google or Microsoft, but it pays the bills. Dad tried his best to balance things out. He'd slip into my room after particularly brutal comments from Mom and say, "She doesn't mean it, buddy. She's just wired differently." He was the one who taught me coding, bought me my first computer, and actually showed up to my college graduation when Mom and Veronica had a scheduling conflict with a spa day. When Dad died of a heart attack 5 years ago, I lost my buffer, my translator, my ally. At the funeral, Mom leaned heavily on Veronica and Tom while I stood slightly apart carrying my grief alone. During her eulogy, she spoke about how Dad was such a wonderful father to Veronica and Tom without mentioning me at all. When I pointed this out later, she accused me of making everything about yourself, even your father's funeral. After Dad's death, I tried even harder to forge a connection with my mom. I called weekly, sent thoughtful gifts on holidays, and made the 3-hour drive from Seattle to Portland at least once a month. Nothing seemed to crack the wall between us. Each visit I'd watch her light up when Veronica talked about her marketing job or when Tom needed help with his latest financial crisis. With me, conversations stayed surface-level perfunctory. My therapist, Dr. Amanda Wilson, helped me see the pattern. "Riley, you're seeking approval from someone who's shown repeatedly. She's unwilling or unable to give it," she said, during one particularly difficult session after last year's birthday debacle where Mom forgot our dinner plans and I sat alone at her favorite restaurant for an hour before giving up. "But she's my mother," I'd argued, that eternal excuse that kept me coming back for more disappointment. "Being a mother is both biological and behavioral," Dr. Wilson replied. "She's fulfilled one of those categories, but you need to ask yourself if you're willing to keep expecting the second when there's so much evidence to the contrary." Despite this insight, I couldn't fully let go of hope. Each year as my birthday approached, a small part of me thought, maybe this time will be different. Maybe this is when she'll finally see me. This year, I decided to take control of my birthday expectations. I told my mother weeks in advance that I'd like to have a family dinner on my actual birthday, which fell on a Saturday. I even offered to drive to Portland to make it easier. She responded with a non-committal. "We'll see. I need to check everyone's schedules," which I'd learned was usually code for not going to happen. So I made a backup plan. My best friend Marcus offered to host a small gathering at his place in Seattle the day after my birthday. My colleague Jessica promised to bring her famous chocolate cake. I decided that regardless of what happened with my family, I wouldn't spend my 32nd birthday alone and disappointed. A week before my birthday, I called Mom again to confirm. "Oh, Riley, I'm not sure we can do anything that Saturday. Veronica has that charity gala, and Tom mentioned something about an important meeting. It's just dinner, Mom. Maybe a couple of hours." "Well, you know how busy everyone gets. Why don't we play it by ear?" I'd heard that phrase my entire life. Playing it by ear always meant the same thing: my needs would be sacrificed for someone else's convenience. But this time, I had my backup plan. I wouldn't be left waiting by the phone hoping for a celebration that would never materialize. "Sure, Mom," I said, my voice steady, despite the familiar disappointment settling in my chest. "Just let me know." As I hung up, I reminded myself of what Dr. Wilson had told me. You can't control other people's actions, only your response to them. This year, my response would be different. I wouldn't let my mother's indifference define my birthday. Still, as the day approached, I couldn't completely squash that stubborn flicker of hope. My 32nd birthday dawned bright and clear in Seattle, the kind of rare, perfect spring day that feels like a gift itself. I woke to my phone buzzing with notifications, text messages from Marcus and Jessica, emails from colleagues, and even a video message from my old college roommate singing an off-key rendition of Happy Birthday from his new apartment in BHN, Tokyo. What was noticeably absent was any acknowledgement from my family. No missed calls, no text messages, no emails. The rational part of my brain had expected this, but that small, hopeful part still felt the sting. "Don't check social media," I muttered to myself as I got out of bed. I had learned years ago that seeing birthday wishes for others in my family, elaborate posts with childhood photos and heartfelt captions, only highlighted the disparity in how we were treated. I made myself a special birthday breakfast, blueberry pancakes with real maple syrup, my dad's weekend specialty, and tried to focus on the day ahead. I had taken the day off work and planned a series of small treats for myself: a morning hike at Discovery Park, lunch at my favorite waterfront restaurant, an afternoon movie, and then a quiet dinner at home before meeting friends the next day. By noon, I had completed a beautiful 5-mile loop at the park, the Puget Sound sparkling below as I wound through forest trails. The endorphins from the exercise lifted my spirits, and I found myself thinking that maybe this birthday wouldn't be so bad after all. I was creating my own happiness, not waiting for it to be bestowed upon me by people who had consistently shown they couldn't or wouldn't provide it. As I settled into a table at Anthony's on the waterfront, my phone finally buzzed with a text from my mother. My heart jumped, despite my best efforts at emotional self-protection. "Happy birthday, Riley. Family all tied up with commitments today, so we won't be able to celebrate. Maybe next weekend if everyone's schedules align. Have a good one." The message was so brief and dismissive that I read it twice, trying to extract some warmth or regret from the pixels on my screen. There was nothing. No explanation of what these commitments were. No specific plan for an alternative celebration, not even a single emoji to soften the blow. I put my phone face down on the table and ordered a glass of wine with my lunch, something I rarely did in the middle of the day. The waterfront view blurred slightly as I blinked back unexpected tears. Why was I still affected by this? Why couldn't I just accept that this was our relationship and move on? My phone rang just as my food arrived. It was Marcus. "Happy birthday again, man. How's the solo celebration going?" I tried to keep my voice light. "It's good. Just having lunch at Anthony's." Marcus knew me too well. "What happened?" "Mom flake again." "Just the usual. Too busy, maybe next weekend, etc." "I'm sorry, Riley. That sucks. But tomorrow's going to be great. I promise. Jessica's cake is already in progress, and I got those craft beers you like from that place in Ballard." His kindness made my throat tight. "Thanks, Marcus. I appreciate you guys. That's what real family does, bro." After lunch, I decided to skip the movie. My mood had shifted, and sitting alone in a dark theater suddenly seemed depressing rather than indulgent. Instead, I walked along the waterfront, watching ferry boats cross to Bainbridge Island and back, carrying people with places to go and people to see. By evening, I had rallied somewhat. I picked up a premium steak from the butcher near my apartment, a nice bottle of Cabernet and ingredients for a better-than-restaurant meal. If I was dining alone on my birthday, I would at least do it in style. As the steak sizzled in my cast-iron pan, I made the mistake I had successfully avoided all day. I opened Instagram. I told myself I was just checking for birthday messages from distant friends, but deep down, I was looking for any sign that my family had at least acknowledged my day to the world, even if they hadn't directly to me. What I found stopped me cold. Posted just 20 minutes earlier was a group photo from my mother's account. There they were, my mom Veronica Tom, my uncle James, Aunt Patricia, my cousins, Ryan and Lindsay, and even my grandmother Rose, all squeezed together in a large booth at Morton's Steakhouse in Portland. Wine glasses raised plates of expensive food, visible faces flushed with laughter. The caption read, "Nothing matters more than being together with family. So blessed to have everyone here tonight, family first blessings, grateful." My steak began to smoke in the pan, but I couldn't move. There they were. My entire extended family gathered for what was obviously a celebratory dinner on the very night they were all supposedly too busy to celebrate my birthday. Not only had they excluded me, but they had also documented their exclusion for the world to see. In a daze, I turned off the stove and moved the ruined steak aside. I sat at my kitchen counter, staring at the photo, zooming in on each smiling face. There was Veronica, who had texted last week that she might be out of town on my birthday. There was Tom, who hadn't responded to my messages in days. There was my grandmother, who never missed calling me on my birthday until this year. The most painful detail was the cake visible at the edge of the frame, a chocolate cake with what looked like candles. Were they celebrating something else? Someone else's birthday? But no one else in my family had a birthday in April. The truth was inescapable. This was a family gathering intentionally planned without me. I closed the app and called Marcus again, my hands shaking. "They're all at Morton's," I said, when he answered, not bothering with a greeting. "My entire family. Right now. Having dinner together. With a cake." "What, are you serious?" Mom just posted it on Instagram, with some bullshit caption about nothing being more important than family togetherness. My voice cracked on the last word. Jesus, Riley. I don't even have words. She texted me this afternoon saying everyone was too busy to celebrate. Too busy having dinner without me, apparently. Marcus was quiet for a moment. "I'm coming over." "No, don't. You're preparing for tomorrow. I'll be fine." This is fucked up, Riley. It's beyond their usual neglect. This is active exclusion. He was right, and hearing someone else say it somehow made it both worse and better. This wasn't just in my head. This wasn't me being too sensitive or demanding, as my mother had often accused. This was deliberate. "I just need to process this," I said. "I'll see you tomorrow." "Okay." After hanging up, I turned off my phone completely. I couldn't bear to see any more posts. Couldn't stomach the thought of well-meaning friends seeing that photo and wondering why I wasn't there, or worse, not noticing my absence at all. The steak was ruined, my appetite gone anyway. I poured myself a large glass of the Cabernet and stood at my living room window, looking out at the Seattle skyline as darkness fell. Somewhere out there, people were celebrating birthdays with loved ones who actually wanted to be there. And somewhere, 3 hours south, my family was raising glasses in a toast that deliberately excluded me. The wine did nothing to dull the pain. If anything, it amplified it, removing whatever emotional guards I had left. I found myself pacing my apartment, the Instagram image burned into my memory. Every detail felt like a separate betrayal. My grandmother's presence, the cake, the fancy restaurant, the coordinated timing of it all. This wasn't a last-minute gathering. This had been planned. My chest felt tight, my breathing shallow. I opened my balcony door and stepped out into the cool night air, hoping it would calm the storm brewing inside me. The Space Needle was lit up against the night sky, tourists and locals alike enjoying their Saturday evening below. Normal people, living normal lives connected to families who didn't treat them like unwanted accessories. The worst part wasn't the exclusion itself. I had dealt with that my entire life. It was the deliberate deception. The calculated decision to tell me everyone was too busy, rather than simply not inviting me? Would it have hurt less to be told directly I wasn't wanted? Maybe. At least it would have been honest. My mind began its familiar spiral revisiting scenes from throughout my life that suddenly made more sense in light of this latest rejection. There was my high school graduation, where my mother left immediately after the ceremony to take Veronica shopping for college dorm supplies, even though my name had been called for an unexpected academic award. I had looked out from the stage to find empty seats where my family had been sitting moments before. There was my 21st birthday when I came home from college to celebrate, only to find the house empty and a note saying they had decided to take Tom to a basketball game in Seattle. Ironic now that I lived here, and they rarely visited. There was the Christmas after Dad died, when I drove through a snowstorm to be with the family, only to discover they had already opened all the gifts that morning because Tom was too excited to wait, though he was 23 at the plank time. With each memory, a pattern emerged more clearly than ever before. It wasn't just that I was less favored, I was actively excluded, my presence and inconvenience to be managed rather than welcomed. I picked up my phone and turned it back on a masochistic urge, driving me to look at the photo again. New comments had appeared under it. Such a beautiful family gathering. Nothing better than family time. Love seeing everyone together. And then a comment from my cousin Ryan that made my stomach turn. Great birthday celebration. So glad we could all make it. So, it was a birthday dinner. My birthday dinner without me. I scrolled quickly through my mother's previous posts and found what I was looking for: a similar family gathering last year for Veronica's birthday, with an effusive caption about her being the best daughter any mother could ask. 4. Another from January, for Tom's birthday, calling him my precious baby boy forever, my special one. There were no posts for my birthday last year, or the year before, or ever. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I wasn't just less loved, I was unloved, an obligation, a burden. The family member everyone tolerated, but no one actually wanted around. I called Marcus again, no longer caring that it was nearly midnight. I can't do this anymore, I said when he answered, my voice unrecognizable even to myself. Riley, what's wrong? It's a birthday dinner. My cousin confirmed it in the comments. They're celebrating my birthday without me. Jesus Christ. 32 years, Marcus. 32 years of trying to be good enough, trying to earn a place at the table, literally in this case. You've always been good enough, Riley. This isn't about you being deficient in any way. This is about them being toxic, manipulative people. I sank onto my couch, suddenly exhausted. Then why does it hurt so much? Because they're your family. Because we're programmed to seek approval from our parents no matter how badly they treat us. Because you're a good person who keeps giving chances to people who don't deserve them. His words made sense intellectually, but emotionally, I was still in freefall. After hanging up, I decided to go for a walk, needing physical movement to match the chaos in my mind. Seattle at night was alive with weekend energy. Couples walked hand in hand, groups of friends spilled out of bars laughing. Families with young children hurried toward home. I moved among them like a ghost, invisible, disconnected, alone. The light rain that began to fall matched my mood perfectly. I didn't bother seeking shelter, letting it soak through my jacket, plastering my hair to my forehead. Maybe if I got physically uncomfortable enough, it would distract from the emotional pain. 2 hours and 4 miles later, I arrived back at my apartment building, drenched and chilled to the bone. As I rode the elevator up to my floor, I noticed a package outside my door. A gift basket wrapped in cellophane with a large blue bow, a card tucked inside. I brought it in and opened the card. Happy birthday to the guy who keeps the code clean and the coffee pot full. From your work family at Technova. My work family. The phrase struck me as I unwrapped the basket to find specialty coffees, high-end coding books, and gift cards to my favorite lunch spots near the office. These people who knew me primarily through professional interactions had remembered my birthday, pooled their money, and delivered a thoughtful gift. Meanwhile, my actual family was toasting my absence at a steakhouse 3 hours away. Something broke inside me then. Not in the destructive way things had been breaking all evening, but in a releasing way. Like a dam giving way to let a river flow its natural course. I sat on my kitchen floor, the gift basket beside me, and finally let myself cry, Not dignified tears, but ugly racking sobs that came from the deepest part of me. I cried for the 7-year-old who overheard he was hard to love. I cried for the teenager who scanned audience seats for faces that had already left. I cried for the adult who kept hoping birthday after birthday that things would change. When the tears finally subsided, I felt hollow, but somehow lighter. I showered, changed into dry clothes, and made a cup of tea from my new gift basket. As I sipped it, looking out at the now clear night sky, I wondered if this was finally my breaking point, the moment when hope died and reality was accepted. The thought wasn't as frightening as it once would have been. Maybe accepting that my family would never love me the way I deserved would free me from the cycle of expectation and disappointment that had defined my life. Maybe it would allow me to fully invest in relationships with people who actually showed up, who saw me, who chose me. I fell asleep on my couch, emotionally drained, but with a strange sense of calm. Whatever came next, I had survived the worst of it. I had seen the truth laid bare in that Instagram photo, and while it hurt beyond measure, there was a certain peace in no longer having to wonder. Little did I know, the final blow was yet to come. Sunday morning arrived with pale sunlight filtering through my blinds. For a blissful moment between sleep and wakefulness, I forgot about the previous day's revelations. Then reality crashed back, though the sharp edges of last night's pain had dulled somewhat into a heavy resignation. I reached for my phone, planning to text Marcus about our gathering later that day. A notification banner caught my eye. Venmo request from Diane Matthews. My mother rarely used Venmo. The last time had been to request money for Dad's funeral flowers, which had struck me as odd even then. With a sense of foreboding, I opened the app. The request was for $1,300. The description simply read, "Your share of birthday dinner at Morton's." I stared at the screen, certain I was misunderstanding. She couldn't possibly be asking me to pay for a significant portion of a dinner I hadn't been invited to, much less attended. Yet there it was, the audacity laid bare in black and white. Below the request was a message. "We put this on my card since you couldn't make it, but everyone needs to pay their share." The total came to $7,800 for 15 people, so I've divided it equally. Please pay promptly. $7,800. 15 people. A dinner supposedly in honor of my birthday that cost more than my monthly rent, attended by people I didn't even know. Totaled 15 in my family circle, with not a single person thinking to include me. And now I was expected to pay nearly a sixth of the total cost. My hands shook so badly, I had to put the phone down on my coffee table. This went beyond emotional neglect or casual exclusion. This was deliberate cruelty, wrapped in a financial demand. This was my mother not only celebrating my birthday without me, but expecting me to fund the celebration. I took a screenshot of the request and sent it to Marcus with no comment. Within seconds, my phone rang. "Tell me this is a joke," he said immediately. "I wish it was. She's asking you to pay for your own birthday dinner that you weren't invited to. This is insane, Riley. This is beyond toxic." Apparently, there were 15 people there. I said, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. Who even were they all? I can only count 12 people I'm related to, including distant cousins. Probably friends of your mom or siblings who got a free expensive meal on your dime. Marcus said, his voice tight with anger. "You're not paying this right. Please tell me you're not even considering it." Was I considering it? The sad truth was that my first instinct had been to pay it immediately to avoid conflict, to keep whatever scraps of relationship I had with my family. That realization was perhaps the most sobering of all, that I had been so conditioned to accept mistreatment that my automatic response to this outrageous demand was compliance. "I don't know what I'm doing yet," I answered honestly. "Riley, listen to me. This is financial abuse on top of emotional abuse. You need to stand your ground." After talking with Marcus, I tried calling my sister Veronica, wanting to hear her side of the story. She answered on the fourth ring, her voice wary. "Hey Riley, what's up? I just got a Venmo request from Mom for $1,300 for a dinner I wasn't invited to." A pause. "Oh, that? Yes, that. What the hell, Veronica? You all had a dinner for my birthday without me, and now expect me to pay for it. She sighed, the put-upon sound I'd heard countless times when I questioned family dynamics. It wasn't originally for your birthday, Riley. It was just a family dinner that happened to fall on your birthday. But then Grandma Rose asked where you were, and Mom didn't want to upset her, so she said you were coming later. Then when you didn't show up, because I wasn't invited. Well, Mom had to say something, so she said you had a work emergency, but had organized the whole thing as a treat for everyone. Grandma was so touched by your generosity, it just kind of snowballed from there. My mind struggled to process this new information. So Mom lied to everyone. Said, I planned and was paying for a dinner I knew nothing about, and now is actually expecting me to pay for it. Look, I know it sounds bad when you put it that way. How else could it possibly sound, Veronica? This is insane. You always make things so difficult, Riley. This is why Mom says you're exhausting to deal with. Just pay your share and move on. We all have to contribute to family functions. Family functions I'm not welcome at, apparently. Don't be dramatic. You moved to Seattle. You chose to distance yourself. The conversation continued in this vein, with Veronica deflecting, minimizing, and ultimately placing the blame on me. By the time we hung up, I understood several key things. The dinner had indeed been planned well in advance. Everyone knew about it except me and my mother, had crafted an elaborate lie, making me both absent hero and financial sponsor of my live own exclusion. The Venmo request sat unanswered on my phone, a perfect symbol of my family dynamic. I was expected to give and give while receiving nothing in return, not even the basic courtesy of inclusion. As I prepared to meet Marcus and friends for my belated birthday celebration, my phone buzzed with a text from my brother Tom. Hey man, sorry about the dinner thing. It was messed up. Mom's on the warpath about everyone paying their share though. You know how she gets. It was the closest thing to an acknowledgement or apology I'd received, though it still came with the implicit expectation that I would pay. Tom had always been the more decent of my siblings, though still firmly under our mother's influence. I decided to call him. Hey, he answered, his voice low, as if he didn't want to be overheard. Look, I really am sorry about last night. When did you all plan this dinner, Tom? He hesitated. About 3 weeks ago. Mom said she wanted to do a special family gathering, and no one thought to mention it to me. Even when I specifically asked about doing something for my birthday, Mom said you wouldn't want to drive down from Seattle for it, that you were too busy with your fancy tech job to bother with family stuff anymore. The manipulation was so transparent it would have been laughable if it wasn't so painful. Tom, I literally called her multiple times asking to celebrate my birthday with the family. I offered to drive down. She told me everyone was too busy. Shit, really? That's not what she told us. She said you couldn't be bothered to come home for the weekend. We talked for nearly an hour comparing notes on what we'd each been told. It became clear that my mother had been spinning different stories to different family members for years, positioning me as the distant, difficult child who didn't care about family while simultaneously telling me that no one had time for or interest in seeing me. And now she wants me to pay $1,300 for this dinner, I concluded. Tom's voice dropped even lower. She's been doing that kind of thing to me for years, man. Remember that trip to Hawaii last year? She told everyone I had organized it as a surprise for her 60th birthday. I didn't find out, until we were there, that I was supposedly covering half the villa rental, $4,000 I didn't have. What did you do? What could I do? I put it on my credit card. I'm still paying it off. Something clicked into place. Is that why you've been picking up all those extra shifts at the brewery? To pay off a vacation you didn't plan? Among other things. There's always something with Mom. Some expense I supposedly agreed to, some promise I allegedly made. My brother, who I'd always seen as the favored son, was being financially manipulated, just as I was, perhaps even more so, because of his physical proximity to our mother. As I hung up with Tom, the Venmo request still sat unanswered on my phone screen. It no longer felt like just a personal insult. It was part of a larger pattern of control and manipulation that had ensnared multiple family members. My mother wasn't just emotionally neglectful. She was actively harmful to the people supposedly closest to her. With this new perspective, I headed to Marcus's apartment, the Venmo request still pending, a decision brewing in my mind. The belated birthday gathering at Marcus's apartment should have been a welcome distraction, but my mind kept returning to the Venmo request and the revelations about my family. Jessica's chocolate cake sat barely touched on my plate as I recounted the whole story to my friends. "I always knew your mom was difficult," Jessica said, her eyes wide with disbelief, "but this is next-level manipulation." Marcus nodded grimly. "The question is, what are you going to do about it? Because if you pay that request, Riley, you're telling her this behavior is acceptable." That was the crux of the issue. Every previous hurt, every exclusion, every dismissive comment I had, let them all slide in the name of keeping the peace, of maintaining whatever tenuous connection I had with my family. But this latest move felt different. It wasn't just emotionally hurtful. It was financially exploitative and deliberately deceptive. "I have a therapy session with Dr. Wilson tomorrow," I said. "I need to process this with her before I decide anything." The next day, I sat in Dr. Wilson's comfortable office, the now familiar space feeling like a sanctuary after the emotional turbulence of the weekend. "So, they held a dinner on your birthday, without you told everyone you had organized it, and now your mother is asking you to pay $1,300 for it?" Dr. Wilson summarized after I had recounted the events. "Yes. And how does that make you feel, Riley?" I had expected this question, but the answer still surprised me. Honestly, clear. For the first time, I'm seeing the situation without any illusions. This isn't about me being unlovable, or difficult, or not good enough. This is about my mother being controlling and manipulative, and my family being either complicit or similarly victimized. Dr. Wilson nodded. "That's an important insight. You're separating your self-worth from their treatment of you." "I also feel angry," I continued. "Not the helpless anger I've felt before, but a kind of righteous anger. Like I finally have permission to be furious about how I've been treated. That anger is valid and potentially very useful. It can motivate change if channeled properly." We spent the session exploring healthy ways to establish boundaries, discussing the concept of family of choice versus family of origin, and examining the patterns that had kept me trapped in a cycle of hope and disappointment for so many years. "What about the Venmo request?" I asked as our time was winding down. "Do I just ignore it? Decline it? Pay it to avoid further drama?" Dr. Wilson leaned forward slightly. "What do you think would serve your mental health best in this situation?" I considered the question carefully. Paying it would feel like accepting their narrative that I'm responsible for a celebration of my exclusion. Ignoring it feels passive. Declining it might trigger a confrontation I'm not sure I'm ready for. Those are all valid concerns. But I'd like you to consider a fourth option, responding in a way that firmly establishes your boundaries while also being true to your values. As I left the session, that fourth option took root in my mind. What if I could respond in a way that wasn't just reactive to my mother's manipulation, but proactive in changing the dynamic entirely? Later that day, I met Jessica for coffee. As a financial advisor, she had insights I valued. $1,300 is a lot of money, she said, stirring her latte. But this isn't really about the money, is it? No, I agreed. It's about the pattern. It's about being expected to finance my own exclusion and mistreatment. From what you've told me about your conversation with Tom, you're not the only one being financially manipulated. That's what keeps bothering me. Tom's still in Portland, still directly under her influence. He's paying off debts for things he never agreed to. Jessica set down her spoon. So maybe this isn't just about standing up for yourself. Maybe it's about breaking a pattern that's hurting others too. Her words resonated with something that had been forming in my mind since talking with Tom. This wasn't just my battle. It was a family system that needed disruption for everyone's sake. That evening, I received a call from an unexpected source, my Uncle Frank, my father's brother, who had been at the infamous dinner. "Riley, I owe you an apology," he said, without preamble. "I had no idea you weren't involved in planning that dinner. Your mother told everyone it was your treat to the family since you couldn't be there in person. I appreciate that, Uncle Frank, but I knew nothing about it. I wasn't invited, and now Mom's asking me to pay $1,300 for the privilege of being excluded." He was quiet for a moment. I've always thought the way your mother treated you was unfair. Your dad and I talked about it many times before he passed. He worried about you, tried to shield you from the worst of it. The mention of my father brought a lump to my throat. Did he ever say why? Why? She's always been this way with me. Diane has always played favorites. Even when we were dating, your dad noticed how she treated certain friends differently depending on what she could get from them. With you kids, Veronica fed her ego with achievements she could brag about, and Tom gave her someone to control and feel needed by. You were always more independent. More like your dad. Analytical, self-sufficient. She couldn't figure out how to use that. It was the most direct assessment of my family dynamic I'd ever heard, and coming from someone who had observed it for decades, it carried weight. What should I do about this Venmo request, Uncle Frank? What would your father advise, do you think? I considered this. He'd tell me to be true to myself, but smart about it. To stand up for what's right, without burning bridges unnecessarily. That sounds like Robert, Uncle Frank said softly. He was always diplomatic, even when dealing with difficult people. But he also had lines that couldn't be crossed. I think your mother just pole vaulted over one of those lines. After talking with Uncle Frank, I did something I'd never done before. I researched my mother's pattern of financial manipulation. I created a spreadsheet of every time I could remember being asked to contribute financially to family events I hadn't been fully included in. The total over the past 10 years was staggering, nearly $20,000 for holiday gifts I hadn't been consulted on, vacations I hadn't attended, and gatherings I'd been only peripherally included in. I then called Tom again, asking if he would be comfortable sharing his own experiences. He was hesitant at first, but eventually opened up about multiple instances of financial exploitation. Everything from loans that were never repaid, to being guilted into covering expenses for family events. Far beyond his means as a brewery assistant manager. I'm drowning in debt, Riley, he admitted. But every time I try to say no to Mom, she makes me feel like I'm betraying the family. What if there was a way out, I asked. What if you could break free from this cycle? I don't see how. My credit's shot, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, and I still somehow end up paying for things I never agreed to. What if I could help? Not by giving you money directly, but by creating a situation where Mom couldn't manipulate you financially anymore. A plan was taking shape in my mind, not just a response to the Venmo request, but a complete recalibration of my family relationships. It would be bold, it would be boundary setting, and it might change things forever. But after 32 years of trying to earn a place at a table, I was never truly welcome at, maybe forever needed to change. The Venmo request continued to sit unanswered on my phone, but now it felt less like a burden and more like an opportunity, a catalyst for the transformation that was long overdue. The Venmo request had been pending for 3 days now. I knew my mother was checking it repeatedly, probably growing increasingly frustrated at my lack of response. That suited my purposes perfectly, as I finalized my plan. First, I consulted with Marcus, who had become increasingly outraged on my behalf as the situation unfolded. What you're proposing isn't revenge, he assured me, as we sat in my living room, laptops open, as I showed him my research. It's intervention. It's breaking a toxic cycle. It's going to cause a huge family upheaval, I countered. Mom will be furious. She's counting on that fear to keep you compliant. That's how manipulators work. They make the consequences of standing up for yourself seem worse than the ongoing mistreatment. He was right, and hearing it from someone outside the situation helped solidify my resolve. Next, I spoke with Jessica, whose financial expertise was crucial to my plan. What you're suggesting for Tom is actually really smart, she said, reviewing the draft documents I'd prepared. An educational trust that your mother can't access would give him a path forward, without risking the money being diverted. Is it too controlling of me? Am I just replacing one form of financial manipulation with another? Jessica shook her head. The difference is choice. You're offering Tom options and support, not demands and guilt. He can take it or leave it, and either way, you're respecting his agency. With their input, I refined my approach, making sure every aspect was carefully considered. This wasn't about hurting my mother, or even punishing her. It was about changing a dynamic that had harmed multiple family members for decades. The most delicate part was reaching out to Tom again. I needed to be certain he was genuinely open to change, not just venting frustrations he would later retreat from under our mother's influence. "I've been thinking about our conversations," I said when he answered my call. "About the financial pressure Mom has put on both of us over the years." "Yeah, it's pretty messed up when you lay it all out," Tom replied. He sounded tired. The kind of bone-deep weariness that comes from fighting a losing battle for too long. "What if I told you there might be a way out? Not just from this specific Venmo request, but from the whole pattern." "I'm listening." I explained my proposal. I would set up an educational trust for Tom, enough to cover the remaining courses he needed to complete his long-abandoned business degree. The money would go directly to the educational institution, with additional funds released only for verified educational expenses. It would be completely separate from our mother's influence. "Why would you do this for me?" Tom asked, his voice thick with emotion. "After everything, after the way the family has treated you." "Because you're my brother. Because Dad would have wanted me to look out for you. And honestly, because helping you break free from Mom's financial control helps me too. It changes the whole family system." There was a long pause. "What about Mom? She'll go ballistic when she finds out." "Probably," I agreed. "But that's part of why this has gone on so long. We're all so afraid of her reaction that we keep enabling the behavior. At some point, someone has to be willing to weather the storm to create change." Tom agreed to think about my offer, which was all I could ask for. I knew he was torn between the hope of freedom and the fear of our mother's disapproval. It was a conflict I understood all too well. With those pieces in place, I turned to the most direct aspect of my plan, responding to the Venmo request itself. After consulting with Dr. Wilson one more time, to ensure my approach was emotionally healthy rather than reactively vengeful, I was ready. I drafted a message that would accompany my Venmo response. It was several paragraphs long, carefully worded to be firm, but not cruel, boundary setting, but not accusatory. I detailed the pattern of exclusion throughout my life, the manipulation I had endured, and my decision to no longer participate in a family dynamic that caused me harm. The key paragraph read, "I will not be paying for a birthday dinner I wasn't invited to, informed about, or included in. Instead, I am giving myself the gift of boundaries and giving Tom the gift of educational opportunity. I am declining this request, and all future requests, that involve financing my own exclusion from family events." I then prepared a separate email to send to the extended family members who had been at the dinner, explaining that contrary to what they had been told, I had not organized or agreed to sponsor the gathering. I was careful not to villainize my mother, but simply to correct the narrative that had been created about me. The final piece was the most meaningful to me, a donation in my father's name to a family counseling center that specialized in helping people establish healthy boundaries in difficult family situations. It felt like a way to honor his memory, while also creating something positive from a painful situation. With everything prepared, I took a deep breath and executed each part of my plan in sequence. First, I sent the email to my extended family members, then I made the donation in my father's name. Next, I finalized the paperwork for Tom's educational trust and sent him the details. Finally, I opened the Venmo app, navigated to my mother's pending request, and firmly pressed decline, attaching my carefully crafted message. As I hit send, I felt a complex mix of emotions: fear of the backlash that would surely come, sadness for the family relationship I had always wanted, but never truly had, but predominantly a profound sense of relief. For the first time in my life, I had responded to my mother's manipulation, not with compliance or ineffectual anger, but with clear, considered action. My phone began buzzing almost immediately with notifications, emails, texts, calls. I silenced it and set it aside. The storm would rage, but I didn't have to stand in it. I had said my piece, established my boundaries, and offered a path forward that aligned with my values. What happened next was not within my control. What I had control over was my response, my boundaries, and my choice to no longer participate in a dynamic that caused me pain. That was my true birthday gift to myself. Not revenge, but release. The weeks following my declined Venmo request were exactly as turbulent as I had anticipated. My mother's initial response was a barrage of angry texts accusing me of humiliating her, of being selfish and ungrateful, of airing family business to outsiders. Veronica echoed these sentiments, calling me dramatic and attention-seeking. I didn't respond to any of it. Instead, I focused on implementing the boundaries I had established. I set up email filters that directed messages from my mother and Veronica to a separate folder I could check when I felt emotionally prepared. I blocked notifications for their calls and texts during work hours and before bed, creating protected time where I couldn't be ambushed by their reactions. The extended family response was mixed, but illuminating. My grandmother Rose called, her voice quavering with emotion. "I had no idea, Riley," she said. "Your mother told us all you had arranged everything, but couldn't attend because of work. I should have called you directly to thank you. I should have known something wasn't right." "It's not your fault, Grandma," I assured her. "Mom has been spinning different stories to different people for years." "Well, it stops now, at least with me. I've always loved you, sweetheart. Never doubt that." Uncle Frank and Aunt Patricia similarly reached out with support, as did my cousins, Ryan and Lindsay, all expressing varying degrees of shock at how they had been misled. It was healing to realize that not everyone in my family had willingly participated in my exclusion. Many had been manipulated just as I had been. The most significant development came from Tom. 3 days after I declined the Venmo request, he called me. "I want to take you up on the educational trust," he said without preamble, "and I want to move to Seattle." "Seriously, that's a big step, Tom." "I know, but after seeing how you stood up to Mom, how you found a way to break the pattern, I can't stay here anymore, man. I can't keep being controlled and manipulated. I need a fresh start, and I want to repair our relationship. We're brothers. That should mean something." Over the next month, I helped Tom find an apartment in Seattle, not too far from mine. He enrolled in business courses at a local college, using the trust I had established. We began spending time together regularly, watching sports, trying new restaurants, sometimes just talking about our shared experiences growing up in a dysfunctional family system. "I always thought you had it easier than me," he admitted during one of these conversations. "You got out, moved away, built your own life, but now I realize you were carrying just as much damage, just in different ways." "We all were," I replied. "Even Veronica, though she might never admit it. Mom's favoritism wasn't good for any of us." As for my mother, she cycled through various tactics to regain control. After the initial anger came attempts at guilt, lengthy emails about how much she had sacrificed for me, how ungrateful I was, how this stress was affecting her health. When that didn't work, she tried financial leverage, sending threatening messages about removing me from her will or claiming I owed her for college expenses from years ago. Finally, when nothing elicited the compliance she sought, she attempted reconciliation on her terms. "I forgive you for your outburst. We can move forward as if this never happened." With Dr. Wilson's guidance, I crafted a single clear response. "I'm open to rebuilding our relationship on healthier terms, which would include respect for my boundaries, acknowledgement of past patterns, and a commitment to more honest communication. I'm happy to discuss this in family therapy if you're willing." She never replied to that message. Veronica remained aligned with our mother, which was painful but not surprising. We hadn't been close as adults, but there had always been the connection of shared childhood experiences. Now it seemed that connection wasn't strong enough to withstand the changes I was making. I left the door open for communication, but accepted that she might never walk through it. 6 months after my 32nd birthday, I organized a different kind of family gathering, a half-birthday celebration at my apartment in Seattle. Tom was there, as were Uncle Frank and Aunt Patricia, who had flown in for the weekend. Marcus and Jessica came along with other friends who had supported me through the transition. Even Grandma Rose made the trip, declaring at 82 that she wasn't too old to start standing up for what's right. As we sat around my living room sharing stories and laughter, I realized something profound: family isn't defined by DNA or obligation. It's created through respect, support, and mutual care. The people in my apartment that day were my real family, some related by blood, others by choice, all connected by genuine love. The healing journey wasn't linear, and it wasn't always easy. There were days when the grief of what I had lost, or perhaps more accurately, what I had never really had hit me hard. Dr. Wilson helped me understand that this grief was normal, that it was actually a healthy sign I was processing rather than suppressing my experiences. "You're not just setting boundaries with your mother," she explained during one session. "You're mourning the mother you deserved but never had. That's profound work, Riley, and it takes time." I developed new practices to support my emotional health. I started journaling regularly, documenting both difficult feelings and moments of joy. I joined a support group for adults dealing with family estrangement, where I found comfort in sharing experiences with others who truly understood. I even began volunteering at a youth mentoring program, channeling my own experiences into helping young people navigate difficult family situations. Tom flourished in his new environment. Free from our mother's influence, he excelled in his courses, and even started dating a kind, supportive woman named Melissa, who quickly became part of our extended circle. Watching him grow into himself, seeing the confidence and joy that emerged when he wasn't being constantly manipulated, was perhaps the most rewarding aspect of the whole situation. As my next birthday approached, I felt none of the familiar dread and anticipation. Whatever happened or didn't happen with my mother and Veronica, I now had people in my life who celebrated me authentically, who showed up, not out of obligation, but out of genuine care. The Venmo request that had once seemed like the ultimate insult had become in retrospect a gift, the catalyst that finally pushed me to break free from a lifetime of emotional manipulation. By declining to pay for my own exclusion, I had purchased something far more valuable: my freedom, my self-respect, and my right to be treated with basic dignity. The greatest lesson I learned through all of this was that sometimes the healthiest thing you can do for yourself is to stop trying to earn a place at a table where you're not wanted, and instead build your own table, one where everyone is welcome, everyone is valued, and no one is asked to pay for their own exclusion. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who consistently hurt you? I hope my story gives you courage if you're facing similar challenges. Remember that you deserve respect and love, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand up for yourself. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening, and may you find the strength to create the family you deserve, whether by blood or by choice.